lot of Westerners will get so triggered and so defensive about this that they won't even be able to accept this layer of reality, much less the next layer of reality, because the next layer is even harder to reconcile yourself with if you're a Westerner. The next layer is realizing that there is no escaping the consequences of your history, and realizing that those consequences are, in fact, being imposed upon you right now, especially in America, but in Europe too. I mean, look at Europe. It's falling apart. Europe is falling apart. They're going extinct, and even their own natural extinction isn't fast enough for them. They're rushing towards war and conflict on the continent. Macron just told hospitals in France that they need to be ready for a European war by next year, war with Russia. They're tearing their own societies apart. They're impoverishing themselves. They're enslaving themselves. They're deindustrializing themselves. They're being asset stripped. Exactly what they did to the people that they colonized. Europe is tumbling into the abyss of their own making. But America, the imperial heir of Europe, the neoliberal economic firing squad of corporate power, they used to spray their bullets like a mass shooter all across the global South, all across the Muslim world, all across Africa, all across so-called Latin America. Well, America is descending into madness. You're descending into madness because you're cursed. That's why I've said you cannot properly analyze geopolitics. You cannot properly analyze geopolitics if you exclude the reality of divine justice. You cannot exclude God from your assessments. You can't exclude Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from your forecasts. And you cannot be as unjust, as degenerate, as wicked as America has been, and actually think that the consequences are not going to be severe. You understand? The suffering of whole continents at your hands is going to ricochet back onto America. I said you're cursed. You know it and I know it. That's the truth. We both know this, because you can't have any sort of religious sense, any religious sense of justice, and not know that. Even if you call yourself a Christian, if you call yourself believing in God in any way whatsoever, you cannot pretend that you don't know that America is cursed, and it has been cursed ever since you all landed over there in the first place and started massacring the indigenous people and stealing their land. What your Zionist brigades are doing to the Palestinians right now is just a fraction of what you did to the Native Americans. What Hitler did was a fraction of what you did, in fact. And you really think that you were going to be able to escape the consequences of that? Of course not. Obviously not. Why do you even think for a minute that you could escape the consequences of decimating millions upon millions of people? To think that you would get away with that, wallahi, to even think that you could get away with that, to even think that you would never be held accountable for that is blasphemy. It's blasphemous for you to think that you could get away scot-free, especially when you have never even done anything ever since then, except to compound the wrongdoing and to add to your record of crimes. You understand me? You have done nothing to atone. You haven't done anything to atone for what you have done. You and I both know that. Genocide, chattel slavery, rape, torture, lynching, murder, dehumanization, discrimination, segregation, exploitation, subjugation, war all around the world. Why, what sort of a God do you worship that would turn a blind eye to all of that? What kind of a God did you have in mind when you say, God bless America? Because I know you're not talking about the God. I know you're not talking about the creator of the universe. Bless America for what? Bless America for what? If you did what you did and then say, God bless America, that's just another blasphemy.